James, first off, I lived in downtown for almost 10 years, and I always loved going to Koreatown. So this movie could be alternately named Forget It, Jake. It's Koreatown. Can you just talk about the location, your inspiration behind writing along this part of Los Angeles, which doesn't really get duly shown in a lot of cinema. So can you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in LA, so and I went to a predominantly Korean high school right near Koreatown, John Burroughs, and so I mean, sorry, middle school, not high school. But and also love K-Town. I mean, Korean barbecue I go to all the time, and it's for me, one my favorite movie of all time is Oldboy. It's a Korean movie, Park Chan-wook, and I grew up on noir films, so being able to combine all this movie is a hodgepodge of all the things I love. Being able to combine like the Maltese Falcon and Old Boy and the action movies I grew up on, and set it in like Koreatown and like a noir setting is a dream come true.
I'm a huge noir fan. There's some Lady in the Lake reference as well with the camera,
Yeah.
looking straight to the camera. Can you speak to that? And also, did you feel like you grew as a filmmaker in this? Because you're referencing noir, but you're doing some really great shots. There's the action sequence inside the car from the POV shot. Can you just talk
Yeah,
about, did you
that's what I call the Children of Men scene, because I was trying to do like even though we're not driving, I was like, what if we did a fight sequence like a la Children of Men? So we actually hollowed out the inside of that car and built a rig, the same rig they had in Children of Men, to be able to slide back and forth and spin around in the car to do these long shots, during the fight unbroken. And I feel like I grow as a filmmaker every time I make a movie. But this one we had the time. It was we had 24 days, so it was being able to really play inside that and create something allowed me to do that, as well as I was able to throw back to The Third Man and the Maltese Falcon and tons of movies that I grew up on, and do some really fun stylistic stuff inside of this and play with shadows, and it was very exciting for me to be able to do that.
And I love the fact that JCVD, he's not a one-man killing machine in this movie. He gets hurt. He shows his mortality. Can you speak to that as far as a character and developing this character? That must have been a draw for you as far as building out this universe.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, much like movies like The Maltese Falcon or any of our great noir films, this is about a flawed alcoholic character who's holding himself together, while falling apart. And he's putting on a facade for other people, but he's dying inside. And I think that that's a really interesting character to dive into. And so when I was speaking with JC originally about this role, I was like, what is it like if we play your own age, like your real age? You're not Jean-Claude Van Damme. You're not an action star here. You're a guy fighting out of necessity, fighting out of love, and trying to save someone. And so he's taking real damage, and I think it raises the stakes. It creates a situation where you're never sure if he's going to survive any of the moments in the movie.
James, I've asked you this before, but with the years since, what's your unlock as a writer? Because your turnaround is pretty fast, and you go on IMDb, you have over 40 credits as a writer. So is there an unlock as far as your daily, are you up at 4 in the morning drinking coffee and before the day starts, do you start writing? Or is there an unlock to what you do on your work schedule regarding
Well,
writing?
on this one, I was very blessed to be able to work with Alethea Cho, who was my co-writer on it. She actually lives in Korea, but I knew her when she lived out here, and so collaborating with her was a huge part of this. But and she did a lot of the heavy lifting in many of the aspects of this. But I also, for me, it's a lack of fear of the blank page. I'm not afraid of just putting something on the page, and because I've always felt like anybody can read something and figure out what's wrong with it. So if I sit there and I just word vomit onto the page and just get something out there, I can go back and go, well, this doesn't work, and this, because you can tweak stuff, and I look at it as like a second writer. I don't look at it as like I look at it as like, okay, that was stupid James. Now smart James is going to come in and fix this, you know. But I at least got it out there, you know, and I think that's very helpful. But you know, Alethea, as well as working with a co-writer, I think that really pushes you forward. And I think Alethea really brought so much to this, especially in the Korean aspects of the film. You know, that was really something, you know, special and unique that she was able to bring here. And I got really excited by, you know, working on a lot of the noir, you know, stuff that's in it, as well as like a lot of the darkness of man, the stuff that was inside JC's head throughout the film, and the speeches that he gives. And actually, weirdly enough, one of the speeches that he gives inside the movie was a monologue that I wrote as a school project in ninth grade.
That's amazing. I can't imagine your archive. Okay, for the stuff that you keep. Look, James, the thing I really love about your films is the tones can be so many different directions, and it's not just a linear, predictable tone. And especially this movie, there's so many different elements which you're going, wow, this happened, this happened. Can you just, and I think that goes to the point that you don't fear failure as a filmmaker. You're learning, like you say, every job you're learning. But is that the problem with maybe certain filmmakers where they could be really talented, but they try to stay the predictable course, or they're afraid of taking the big swing? Do you know what I'm saying? And it seems like you're always ready to take that big swing, and it doesn't matter if you make a mistake as long as you're learning along the way and you're bringing something new to the table.
I mean, I appreciate that you say that. Sometimes I feel like I'm too cautious, but I feel like, you know, at many times, especially in this movie, you know, we tried to take all the risks that we could, to, you know, because we weren't making a down the middle action movie. We were making something that was very unique and very different, and you know, hopefully it resonates with audiences the way we're hoping it does. But I definitely think, as filmmakers, you know, it's our job to push boundaries and try new things. And for me, you know, a lot of what I like to do is like try and see, well, what's my version of doing, you know, Maltese Falcon, or what's my version of doing, you know, that scene from Children of Men. If I'm sitting here, like certain things make me go, oh, that would be really exciting to play that moment, but in this type of movie. And that gets me excited. And so, you know, it's fun to take those risks. I mean, you know, the car scene where we're that fight scene from that plays entirely from inside the car, and you're seeing them fight around the windows, you know, that we're talking about. That was 100% a risk, because you know, if that didn't work, that would have been a really boring scene. So I'm very excited that it worked for a lot of people. And I hopefully it works for, you know, the audience in general.
James, in our past interviews, you've mentioned Oldboy a lot as far as shaping you as a cinephile, maybe a filmmaker. For my podcast, I want to ask you just, can you name maybe a couple of films that really shaped you and inspired you to become a director? And maybe you go back to even now as an experienced filmmaker for reference and inspiration. What made them special for you?
Oldboy, Kill Bill, Casablanca, Sin City, and probably the Maltese Falcon.
The old boy, is it the plotting that really inspires you? The fact that with the reveals and everything like that, or how
I
it's
think the
layered?
plotting, the reveals, the idea that you could take such a simple, contained story and then expand it so much. I mean, we spend so much time in that room in the beginning of the movie, and then when the world opens up, there's that feeling of like, wow, this is a new world. And yet, when we're outside in that new world, they're able to take that excitement of being back in the world and turn it on its head and make you bitter to the world outside. I think that's what's really interesting, the power of how that movie plays with your emotion and the cinematography. I think, Park Chan-wook is just a phenomenal storyteller. Really, all of his movies are just mind-blowing.
Yeah. I really love how you have sort of your own company of actors. I wonder if do you have a certain list? You know, there's Spencer Breslin, there's Shannon Doherty. How cool is it, and more? How cool is it for you to add? Has that always been part of your sort of your aesthetic, just to bring people you love to work with back on as part of your ensemble?
Yeah, definitely. I love working with the same people. A lot of the time, if it isn't broken, don't fix it. I'll read a script and I'll go, oh, this is a person. Or when I'm writing a script, I go like, how do I add this person into the movie? And so, there's a lot of that as well. And part of it, it's exciting for me. I mean, one of the things, one of my favorite things is, collaborating with actors and every actor speaks their own language. And so when you learn that person's language, you know if you can speak to them, why learn somebody else's language if you already know theirs? That's a lot of as a director, it's my job to learn the actor's language.
James, after watching Darkness of Man, let's say that that cinephile really enjoys the film, what would you recommend he or she watch from your body of work next, and why?
Interestingly, I don't really think there's anything else in my body of work that's like Darkness of Man. I think it's the most unique of my films, but I would say maybe watch Murder Anyone, which is a comedy, but it has some noir elements. It's more of like a noir send up. It's a comedy. There's no action. Oh, there's actually some action in it, but it's a silly, silly movie. Or maybe watch Beyond the Law, which I did with Steven Seagal, or maybe Fortress. I mean, it's more of a glitzy, popcorn action movie, but I still think it's fun.
Okay, so last question, what's coming up for you? What are you working right now to direct? And then have you gotten film noir out of your system, or are you going to save all of these dollars? And is there a big budgeted noir in the future in your fantasies down the road?
Well, it's funny you ask. Maybe there might be a Darkness of Man too. Maybe. I don't know. There might happen to be something. Who knows? But also, you know, uh, I just wrapped an action movie called The Workout. Oh, so we're in post on that. It stars Peter J, who plays Daeun in Darkness of Man, as well as Josh Kelly and Ashley Evans Smith, who's a UFC fighter. And then, uh, you know, if I'm lucky enough, maybe you'll see me working with one of the next big action stars, like like a Arnold or a Stallone, or maybe like a Liam Neeson. That would be awesome if I'm lucky.
Yeah, so you wouldn't be opposed to another Darkness of Man if it does well down the road. I'm just saying, just like big picture, further down the road, you'd be open to it.
I definitely would be open to exploring this world again for sure.
Right. James, thank you so much for your time. Looking forward to, I
Yeah,
said last time I'll talk to you in 2 weeks. It felt like 2 weeks. I'll see you in another couple weeks for
I'll
your
talk
next
to you
movie.
tomorrow.
Okay. James, thank
Hey,
you so much.
thank you so much. And everybody watch Darkness of Man May 21st on digital, and hopefully you enjoy it. I really think you're going to see JC kick some ass, guys. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, James. You take care.